Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for showing up. This is the first time I've used a microphone, so do the people in the back really, can you guys hear me, or is it better with the mic? Better with mic? Well, I'll try to keep it on my head because, you know, it's in the periphery there. What is that? Okay, so thank you for coming. I want to demo for you. The thing I feel most comfortable with is demoing eucalyptus trees. And I can do it pretty quickly. I have it down. It's kind of a formula painting, but that's okay. You know, I'm going to try to do this quickly like we learned to do in plein air painting. The gist of my painting will look something like this. I have multiples of this same idea. What I'm after in this painting is atmospheric perspective. It's a simple concept, but you have to get your value and color right? You have to figure out your plan of what you're going to draw. This is very simplified. It's got a ground plane, it's got a vertical plane, which are the trees. It's got a sky plane, and whatever's in the back there. It could be mountains, it could be these other trees. By suggesting these colors, it pushes the blues and the cools and the purples, suggests that they go near the back, in the back, and the warm tones, the clearer tones, the greens, the oranges, will bring your eye forward. Whether or not you see that when you first start painting, depends on the sun, the light, the atmosphere, but it is a basic premise for plein air painting, and that's the atmospheric perspective. If I did these all the same color and value, you wouldn't have this feeling like you're looking back into something. So I'm kind of going to use this as my guide. It won't be exactly this because I have some of these other ones I've done are all similar, and I'll just sort of compose something in my head because I've done it so much, but this has more of a warmer, it's more about the core color on our cloudy days. I see a lot of painters making very blue-gray paintings suggesting a cloudy day. And what happens is it's very cold. Now, a lot of this stuff is just my opinion, okay? I've had a lot of teachers, I've had an education, but this is just how I look at it. And we all speak the same language, no matter what your media, but we're still after certain things. So, atmospheric perspective, again, is suggesting that this is an overcast day in California because all the objects, the ground plane, everything is very warm. The skies are the cool. And yellow is not cool, but you add enough white to it, it'll get very cool. So I have some of these here. I'm going to work in that mode, and this is the one I'm gonna, if it's for the art guild, the gallery, and I'm happy to raffle it off. I'm happy to help in that way, as well as sharing what I know. So, basics. My Bible, when I started this landscape journey, because everybody wanted us to be Andy Warhol in my college days. It's the last thing I wanted to do. And abstract expressionism was so in. And I'm going, oh my God. So I did what I was told, because I'm a good student, but all I ever wanted to do was landscape painting. Great reference. It's a little old school, it's kind of wordy, but the visuals in here are excellent. Carlson's Guide to Landscape Painting, he was an excellent painter. Anyway, this is one of my Bibles. This is the 4 planes of landscape painting, the stuff I just talked about in there. The sky, the ground, the verticals, and the mid area. Whether they be mountains, hills, objects, trees, anything. And then, who I love, nothing new has been done before. I know we all try to be so original, but I don't know if that's possible anymore for a human being. It is, I know, but I love Bischoff and his use of color. He was not well received when he started showing his work because it was too garish for the California, I guess the California plein air, Southern California specifically. I adore it because it gives me a clear direction on pushing color without mud. Oil painting is notorious for creating mud because we think one more stroke is going to be better, and you get gray. Yes, that's right. Acrylic is great. It'll dry on you, and you can correct your mistakes. So, with that, I'm not going to belabor what I like, but those things are my direction. And I love being outdoors, as I know so many of you, and it's the only time I feel free without the troubles of the world or my insane head bothering me or thoughts that don't exist. But that's another topic. Okay, I do have my basic notes that I did not invent, but I have them here, very simplified. You're outdoor painting, everything is beautiful. The eyeball wants to just pick up detail on everything, it moves like a million times, right? But you're trying to say something with a frozen picture in time. What your eye does is focus in on something that gives you something your eye and your brain want to focus in on one thing at a time. So why don't you take that little tiny moment and see if you can make a painting out of it. There's always an area where your eye goes, but it should have a connectivity to invite you into the painting. I have this other, it's a similar scene, it's not the same scene, but it doesn't matter to me because my area of focal will be here, which is similar to that. The color and the value when you squint way down is here. This is my entry point. But with color and value, you want to be drawn up, around. This kind of takes you back down. You want your viewer to let them have a moment of explanation without all the details. Does that make sense? You want to have somebody stop and look at your painting, immediately know what they're trying to say, and enjoy looking around it. I have to interpret that for my viewer. And planning is the biggest part. I'm just going to start laying in some work because we're going to do this fast, right? An hour? Yeah. Think I can pull something off in an hour? We'll give you some direction. I'll give you something. Give you a little. Okay. So. I'm just going to do a loose sketch. This is the roadmap. plan ahead. I'm not gonna do the whole scene of this. This was out at Otay Lakes. I had to get away from my husband's giant family party. And I brought my bags. God bless him, I'm not complaining, but phew. Oh, that was not nice. I'm just sort of mixing up a very light, I don't use medium, I use just the terpenoid. I'm just kind of making a map here for myself. Very loose. You gotta watch out not to put any focal area. Yeah, you gotta watch the quadrants. So I'm gonna shoot for my focal area right in here. I laid that in immediately. Now, everything else, believe it or not, it's like the star. I'm the star of the show today, and you are my co-pilots, or you are the additional actors, but the focus is on me. I'm trying to tell you that in the painting. The darkest darks are vertical. I'm really excited, so thanks for being here. I love teaching. If you want to ask me something, please do. And you know, we can talk about what brands of paint, what kind of brushes. None of that matters. What matters is that you know how to handle your medium. I use the cheapest brushes. I use some really expensive paint. I use a certain this, a certain that. We all do. I use watercolor brushes that are cheap, but they're big. They're cheap. I can blow through them. I know how to use those things. I'm not going to recommend. You're all painters and creators. I'm not going to recommend that right now. We can talk about that at some other time. And so I'm just loosely going to lay in some of these trunks, the darkest. Doesn't matter, eucalyptus have really light trunks, but for the purposes of this, right now it doesn't really matter. Here's my light source. Light source was from here. You have to keep that in mind. You cannot paint without some semblance of a light source. Good enough suggestion of trees. There is my horizon line. It's a little close to the center, but I'm going to make my horizon line about here. I have a very wobbly hand, and it's not a technique. I wish it didn't wobble. It didn't wobble 20 years ago, but that's okay. And then this is kind of I'm not consciously thinking about this shape, but there are some inland mountains behind there. I'm making sure that this shape and this shape, and the sky shape are varying. They're a little close right now, but since I'm just winging it, I'm not going to worry about that too much. So, a very simple roadmap, wouldn't you say? I have a directional light source is coming from here. Here's the sun. As it's coming towards us, it's going to create, keep this in mind, this is a good one. You know, I'm just going to make these marks. They're not going to dominate my painting. One of these has to go off. I'll make this the front tree. These rays of light come off of the sun like this. Okay? And I'm going from back to front. So the angle will change of the light. You may not just see that if you're not out there studying and thinking, because photos are tough to work with. I'm just gonna mass in some big darkish shapes. My dark, I just keep it very watery. I might wipe it off later, but I like a nice muddy, kind of a reddish brown. I can adjust them because it's going to be so thin. It's more to the warm. I use Cad Red Light and phthalo green. You can use Viridian's, very nice. It doesn't have as much pigment, in my opinion, as phthalo green. I use a limited palette, one cool of the primaries. Okay, so light's coming from here. Something has to be dark, so I'm just laying them loose.
Toni, do you want to take pictures?
Alright, so, yeah, just a suggestion of these wonderful eucalyptus trees, just very loose. So, oh yeah, sometimes thinner down here, they get a little top heavy. I will push and pull these as I develop them. When I get really done, if I get satisfied, number one, if I get satisfied with this, I'll send it to the ladies who are kind enough to invite me and organize this. And maybe it'll be worthy of posting in your newsletter. I don't know how you guys do that, so that's not my department. That. You notice the word basically is being overused, and I'm doing it. Basically, every other sentence that I hear out of our human mouths is basically. And I got sucked in, I'm doing it.
That's okay, we didn't even notice.
Good.
Now we will.
Thank you, I ruined it for you, good. Everybody says basically, including me. Basically. I'm gonna switch my color value to a cooler tone, which would be kind of a dirty purple pickup of what I was using. Let me see the palette. No. Okay. You know what makes a great gray down shadow color? Which nobody told me. I had to find out on my own till it was, oh yeah. That's okay. There's no secrets in painting or creating. I don't know what the big, it just annoys me when someone said, well, I can't tell you the secret to that. I said, okay, fine, I'm good. Cad Red Light and ultramarine blue and white make a great tone for shadows. I'm going to keep it real loose with the terpenoid still. It's getting a little warm and garish for me, so I'm going to warm it up with the Cad Red. Corners don't matter. Don't make a lot of fuss with your corners. I'm trying to get the whole story around this space here. If I can pull it off quickly enough, I think you'll get the gist.
Thank you.
Perspective, I'm kind of keeping that perspective in mind about how the light flows off of things. Kind I'm losing some edges, it doesn't matter what color, they're just not important. I don't know, I'll put a little of that over here. So I guess the Edgar Payne explanation of this composition would be, what's it called?
Circle.
What's
Circle. No?
Seagull?
Circle.
Circle,
Circle.
there's a name for it. It's whatever it is, okay. Like a portal, circle portal where you're invited in. Come on, you guys, I know you can.
Oh, gosh.
A little warms up the foreground. Anybody have any questions? Not yet?
So, from what point did you realize that you wanted to paint the outdoor?
Oh,
You said,
ever since I was a kid, I was a real tomboy, you know, and just being outside was freedom, and I was always very, I guess, just a sensitive little girl, playing by herself in the country, because we lived way out of town, and you know what it is too, it's totally, both my parents were very creative. They didn't know it because they were, you know, they weren't very well educated. All my grandparents got off the boat in Ellis Island, you know, after World War I. But they were just naturally creative. I mean, we all are. Most of the family is that I'm directly with. And they were always outside. They were always making stuff, doing stuff, not thinking of it, because they had, well, my mom raised us, but my dad always had a regular job. What we called it back east was carpentry. And in the winter, there wasn't any carpentry work, but he was so good at what he did. And it was just a little town, so you don't get a lot of recognition. Anyway. Nancy, it's a good thing I didn't have any more coffee, right?
Right.
I had to quit coffee because I'm hyper as it is, and it makes me too hyper. So I just had to have a cup of real coffee. I'm mixing up sort of a, this is too close to that. I want to get a really nice blue, purple for one. I have to make it light enough for a suggestion of that, the hills and the mountains in the background, that Otay Lakes. I don't need to belabor it. It's just there. I'm just gonna, let me see if I lay this down. See, it feels too bright, so I have to gray it down by adding white. Let me just make it bluer for now. All of this may be adjusted as you paint. You may not. You may adjust it. Let me put a little bit of green in there too, that phthalo. Far away, there is still some sense of green in the background, which would be a warmer tone because it does have yellow in it. Color theory is a great thing to study. Life drawing and color theory. If you have the patience and the time, I would suggest it to any painter. And lots of practice. Okay, not gonna do it with a knife. Another clean, big brush. I want big shapes here. You can noodle it to death afterwards. One thing leads to another. Everything does not have to be exacting. You need to learn to observe with plein air painting. That's why we spend the time out there. It's an invaluable tool whether you're a studio painter or not. You just get to see what's hiding in the darks because there are shapes and values within the darks. I have a wonderful crutch, a red filter plexiglass that I use for value. For some reason, I'm really hooked on it. It's sort of addicted to it. I have trouble with red. Red is a very light value color. And when I see alizarin, I see dark. When I see cad red light, it seems a little bit dark. So instead of wasting time, I use a red filter. Just a suggestion. Let's see.
What's that orangish color that you use?
Oh, it's a purple and a kind of a ochre mixed together. I'm kind of inching in the neutrals. It does feel kind of formulaic now that I'm doing it, but that's okay, they're good tools. That's bothersome. Still on that back hill, okay? Not quite sure if this is the right value and the right color. There's a great debate between a couple of friends and myself. We debate color versus value. One friend likes to see the two separately, and the other friend likes to see them as one thing. And they discuss, they discuss it endlessly. One friend says, if you have the right color value, if you have the right color, you have the right value. And the other friend says, you have to have the right value and then adjust the color to the value. So to me, you know what that sounds like? They sound like they're both saying the same thing. But I stay out of it, I laugh, I listen to them have this discussion ad nauseum. It's just delightful. I love art speak. I could do it all day long. Too dark again. I'm trying to get some really light blue. As things recede, you'll lose the warm colors. That's the whole premise of what I'm trying to say. Here's another way of saying it. The warm colors, they can be warm, but as they recede, they need to change. They need to get cooler. I'm gonna change a couple of these shapes here. Whether you're painting out or from a photo, it's still your painting. And I'm not really caring about, what I've learned is not to care about, well, that tree's not there, so you're not painting the scene. And I disagree with that. If it makes my painting better with a suggestion of what I'm looking at, then I'm successful. And people disagree or agree. Doesn't really matter, does it? We're doing what we love. My best, most favorite line is the Big Lebowski, because, you know, it's just like your opinion, man. And I mean, it fits every situation. When I was younger and not as confident with painting, I hung around some people that were very sure of themselves. And after a while, I thought, wow, well, that's your opinion. You know, or you're dominated your whole life by family or friends or into your own insecurity, whatever. I started getting away from them and feeling more able to experiment. What I'm doing now, I'm sorry, I get into too much of the psychology behind things. I'm warming up with a beautiful orange and green. I mix, I've got some in tubes I might pull out. As things come forward, they get warmer. What's in light is lighter. It's kind of a suggestion of eucalyptus. Put some light over here in the base of. Yeah, I'm going to make this one like a new, smaller, new growth tree, which they tend to get spindly. Kind of have to balance one side because it's a little tippy, so the structure of a eucalyptus tree kind of has to balance because it's tipping this way, but it needs to stand. And Mother Nature will make it get a little heavier on the other side to compensate. It's just stuff I see in nature. Somebody asking something? I can't hear. Okay. And let's see what you those. some shrubs. I'm not really following, a suggestion of some shrubbery. The hardest part for me is to make them look different. There might be the same plant, but to give a variation to them, I find difficult. I have one over here for balance. It's in shade, so it shouldn't stand out too much. I gotta stand back a minute. Yeah, it's okay. I'm gonna clean up this palette, it's getting too muddy. Get that out of the way. It's really tempting to use muddy stuff on your palette. My favorite line is from one of these books, or somebody else's, I don't remember who, but Emile Groupé, Paint Like a Millionaire. Don't put those little teeny piles of paint out. Get a lot of paint out. And be creative. I like to use a lot of cheap stuff because it's all still works, but I'm very generous when it comes to my paint, because I use that paint as a vehicle to give texture. Don't like to lick anything to death. With a million strokes, I like this very loose stuff. It's very immediate and reminds me of what I'm doing, which would mostly be plein air painting. There's plein air painting groups that have wonderful artists, and they're all studio painters. They might get a little clue from outside. They might start a study outside, and they'll come home and finish it perfectly in the studio, the safety of the studio. Sometimes you just gotta be brave. You can't always be the best, but you gotta be true to yourself. Right here. I'm gonna make a really brilliant orange. I gotta move fast, so I'll just jump around, share some tips. A beautiful bright orange trunk really suggests light. Let me push it a little further, because we're honing in. We're honing in on the focal point, this area here, but you kind of need to express it everywhere without taking the thunder away from the focal area. I hope that's making sense, because when you're in a competition and somebody's looking at all your artwork, and clean that up. Or if you're on an online competition and the jurors, there's usually a set of jurors that have to look at 1,000 paintings, and they got the little squares, right? And you scroll through it. What's going to make them look at your painting? If it's all very soft and neutral, soft is okay, neutral is okay, but what's going to be that one thing that, let me stop and look, let me just back up and look? And it might be a stroke, it might be a thing, it could be a really dark spot or a light spot. But something you've got to try in competition, you've got to try to make that piece. It might be always a landscape with eucalyptus trees. But you got to make it speak to people. You do it for yourself, yeah, I get that. But if you're competing or you want to try to make a living by this stuff, I don't know, that's the world I'm in right now. That doesn't mean a hill of beans, because that's just the world I'm in now. I love to compete. And I don't, I get out there with the best of them or the worst of them, and that's not the time. It's when you're in a contest. Maybe you want to really put your best foot forward. This is a very white, light ochre and cad red light, just to suggest some light coming in on this path. This section here will be sort of a path. So let me just get some value in there that suggests a shape within the shadow. Switching tack again. Use your brush, use whatever you want. I've introduced, I always just use ultramarine, but I've introduced cerulean in the palette just because I felt like it. It's very nice greenish blue. Just trying to use color to draw your eye to the focal area. Checking my value. I get distracted by beautiful color. I want my value right.
What type of supplies did you have as a kid?
What?
What kind of supplies did you have as a kid?
Oh, well, when my mother was in her oil painting phase, I used oils along with her. And then she did that for a while, and then it was just school. We had, what we have, like the casing stuff, finger painting, and all that stuff. Yeah, there were not any art supplies at home, except when my mother went through her oil painting phase. She was something else, and she was into belly dancing. My father loved that. And then she decided she wanted an antique shop, so had a big old farmhouse out in the country. It wasn't expensive. It was a big old giant wreck. It was really hard for my parents, but they were young and they could make it work. And so she decided to have an antique shop. My my dad would help when he could. It was a great childhood. Then they really went overboard and bought all the stuff that was cheap back in the 60s in a farm community, which was wagons and bottles and old vehicles and, oh my God, where they got the money, I don't know. But things were really cheap. And so that was my playground. It was hard to not have something to do. I'm going to introduce a little alizarin. Alizarin is more of a darker red, and it works well to kind of get lost in these edge points. When I start lightening it, it's kind of like whatever pile I'm working with, I try to use it to the advantage until it gets all too muddy. Just filling in the holes, kind of. See if I'm... I'm going to go back to that ultramarine and cad red and some yellow. Get a really darkish, warmish something or other in the shadow shape. Shouldn't change the value. Pull some of that in. Darks. On a sunny day when when the verticals, the tree get closer to the sky, they do have to get a little bluer because they're receiving the light from the reflected light from the sky. What can I do to make this sound better? Just that. And you notice that when you're out in the field, if there's sun on the field, and you're doing the underside of a bush, you're gonna see that reflected light, and that, I'm trying to indicate the reflected light that's coming up on the bottom of the bush. And that I learned from Ray Roberts many years ago. He's a good one. His wife Peggy is an incredible teacher. She's probably a better teacher than he is, and if you ever have an opportunity to study with Peggy Kroll Roberts, I would highly suggest it. She gets right the clearest, best examples of value and color in the simplest forms. I just think she's brilliant at that. She works really hard. They both do. There, that's the color. Oh, the time flies when you're having fun. Everybody's so quiet.
They're having fun.
Oh, you're painting along with me, some of you. That's great. I bet you're all really doing your own things because I'm putting you to sleep. You guys.
We're trying to do that.
Toni, do you ever want to stop when it's about that far along?
No. Diane, I've known Diane for many years. She's just become such a talented artist, and she's done me a beautiful kindness in coming, as so many of you have done. And she loves simplicity. She would love a painting that looks just like that, and that should be done. But as far as she's concerned, I noodle it to death. But I'm always right, because I painted longer than her, so she I have to tell her she's wrong. No, this is not done.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Nothing changed.
You just lost a sale. Just teasing.
Okay, you. All right, and just for kicks, because our time is so limited, I just have to do that. It was a beautiful blue sky, of course, and it had the little clouds floating in it. But I'm gonna just power in. Let me see if I don't always use lemon yellow. 'Cause no, I don't use it hardly at all, that's why it's not in here. Okay, I'm just gonna use yellow sky against purple mountains. Thank you, God. It's just a ploy, it's just a tool. What looks like yellow sky is really out in the desert, and it can go green. The sky goes so green. I love going to Borrego's my favorite place, which I can segue into. I'm having a plein air, 3-day plein air in Borrego. 3-day plein air class in Borrego. If anyone's interested, it's at the Yellow Woman Ranch, right in Borrego. What else can I say about that? 3-day workshop, it will be $325 each. You would have to find your own accommodations. It'll be during the plein air week, which is just such a great time to be out there. There'll be lots to do. If you're feeling like you want to really indulge yourself for 3 days, I'm going to plein air paint, I'm going to teach like I'm doing now. We'll be going out in the field, and just having a good old time. And I'm not in any competition, so the pressure is not on me. I just want to share the magic of Borrego with you. I'm not going to care much about those muddy edges. I'm just trying to get my
When is it?
March 6th, 7th, and 8th. And that's during the plein air event where the BAI, it's affiliated with the BAI, Borrego Art Institute, which has been a fantastic vehicle for so many of us. And there's a big art community out there, believe it or not. So it's a thought. Just get lost in Borrego. It's a really simple area to get around and in. So I'm advertising myself, if you're interested. They've been kind enough to put me up, so it's a little more doable if you don't have the means. That looks strange. Let me just, get back to that cast shadow again. Just don't like the value. Get it right. With color, you can always gray down a color by using the opposite color, and then from there you can tweak it one way or the other, meaning you could make it bluer, or maybe you want to make it greener once you get a neutral. So the orange and the blue are complementary colors on the wheel, right? We all know the basic color wheel. If you put them together, it'll give you a grayed down version of whatever color you want to express. So it could be red to the red, it could be to blue. That all making sense? It takes a while for all that stuff to sink in, but hopefully. Got shadows. The shadow is darker near the base of the object that's casting the shadow. There's so many things, isn't it grand? You can kind of never really learn it all or have it all happen in one painting in one day. It's just so cool. That's why we were talking today about, there's no end game. There's no diploma. There's no award, and you've ended. Because I think that's what catches all of us. We want to keep doing it and doing it and doing it, right? You know, Miss Purcell. You, my buddy. Robin is an extraordinary watercolor artist. I'm so proud to know her and have her here watching. Thank you, Robin.
Well, it's a bucket list to try oils, so I figured who better to watch do oils?
Wow.
than Toni.
Mutual Admiration Society, sister. we had a great time in Borrego one year, and Robin was so easygoing. I had been out there a few times, and I asked Robin, "Will you wanna come out with me?" And she followed me out, because you know your studio is in your car instead of transferring stuff over and all of that. And we had a good time. But remember, I fell. I was a bloody mess, and we carried on.
I remember your battery charger, I've got one of those in the back of my car.
Right on.
You know,
Yeah.
Plenty of war stories.
Yeah, plenty of war stories. How adorable. That's so true. Out there painting and your battery dies because an idiot like me, I'm leaving all my doors open and in and out of the trunk, and then no power.
But you were prepared.
We were prepared,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
They're great. I think we got it off at Amazon. It's a battery charger. Little portable thing for $50 or something. You charge it first before you leave your premises. Okay, I've made a critical change. My focal point will now be here. I got it all working that way now. I could adjust it, it just takes too much time. So, let me just put some icing on the cake and be done, so we can get in and out. I just scratch in these shapes just to give me, I don't know why I do it, it just evolved that way. Push the color just because I think it looks pretty and it's something that Franz Bischoff would do. Certainly not me. Oh, I know, one more thing. Let me get some. Using that phthalo. I never used Viridian or phthalo until, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. But it really, I don't know if it's gonna work. Let's just try it. We have bushes and trees and vegetation in light in this mid-tone area in here. And this color seems to, let me gray it down with a little alizarin, a little purplier, but small shapes, just to indicate that there's some bushes back there and little color pops. Let me get it darker, it's not working the way I want. Too busy. Well, I gotta gray it down. It's not working. does not make sense. I'm going to correct it. What doesn't make sense is there should be light there, not shadow. I don't want to dominate, have that dominate. Let's see if this is going to work. So hopefully those of you that are painting, do you see how I use the color pushed to indicate light? It's kind of a tool I use. Cad red light and alizarin and yellow. Make a fascinating deepish color. Could be, you know, makes no sense in a way, but it draws your eye. That competes with that. So you don't want too much of that. And get some strong, clean yellow. And the ground may not look like that, but this is my painting. And I'm going to paint it the way I want to see it, feel it, and indicate it to my viewers. Every time you touch a pile of paint, adjust it. Adjust it in some way as to support this. Really paint's getting a little muddy. So, little brush. And you also see that the texture of the paint is going from thin to thick, which is a classic. You don't have to do it, but that's a classic tool with oil paint especially. I learned that way back when. But everyone can do what they want, because we're all adults now. One more area I want to address, the air holes, which are these negative shapes within, through a tree. We all start out and we want to go ding, 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 ding. No two air holes are alike. You have to adjust color in each one, and it can never be as light as staring at the sun. I mean,
At
the
the sky.
sky. And for this quick draw thing, I'll just do it loosely, but you can't have that sky hole dominating your eyeballs. Doesn't look good. Like this shape here, but now this looks like the focal point. So I just smush around the edges a little. And give a little shadows back there. Nothing too important. I ruin it? You know, when you work fast, it's exciting, and it does keep things fresh, doesn't it? Let's see. Yeah. Hey, you know what, that's good enough for now. We're limited on our time. It's not totally done, but yeah, I think you get the point, all right?
Very nice.
Does it read?